All right. Hello, fellow Neopians. Modern Artifice here. I'm once again joined with TNT Aesop for the second episode of Void If True. And we're going to be going in about some updates that have been happening with the Into the Void plotline. So, the last few weeks have been hectic, especially everything with Drakara. One of the biggest things that people have been a bit all over the place on is, as a Battle Dome challenger, Drakara is probably unlike anything most Neopians have ever seen. And they're thinking that it's only like the most Battle Dome centric Neopians are the ones that are really going to be able to bring her to her knees. Do you have any insight on like the stylistic choices of, was this meant to truly be that difficult of a challenge? Was that the focus? Like, what's going on of this monstrosity that was thrown in front of us?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually two versions of Jakar we fight too. The first is the malevolent being before she's unmasked herself, and then the second is true Jakara once we know her identity. And funny enough, you might think that the second battle would be the toughest, but the way we've actually designed it was the first battle was the most difficult. She's coming at you fresh. She hasn't really gone through this gauntlet of opponents that she will later on when you face her as true Jakara. So she's quite powerful the first time we see her. She has all of her weapons, and narratively, she does win that first battle in Altador. So that was our thought process: was this first fight should be really difficult, and only the top tier of the Battle Dome opponent should be able to beat her. And that's why we did have a pretty powerful Jakara wand that some people can have as bragging rights if you are defeating her and lucky enough to get that drop. The True Jakar was sort of our boss battle that we hoped much more Battle Domers could actually take on and rise the challenge, because the thought process is when you're facing her for the second time, she's gone through a gauntlet of the Battle Fairy and all of the Fairy Queen's guards, and then Fiora herself, as well as numerous other opponents who are fighting her, the other fairies rising to the occasion, and then Iridesia themselves too. So there's actually quite a few people that True Jakara goes through. So that second time around, we did design the battle to hopefully be a little bit easier for maybe not the top tier battle domers. It's still a tough fight. Don't get me wrong. And I will tease that there might be another battle coming that I think everyone can participate in. I think even if you are a lower scope, you'll still have a lot of fun in that final battle as well.
Okay. Well, so speaking of Idresia, I'm always worse at like reading words than I am pronouncing them. But is it Eresdia?
Iridesia.
Iridesia, sorry. That is the hot topic that everyone has been going on about, especially with the reveal of their transformation. Um, a big thing that people have noticed, and this might have been an editing error, something like that, but people have picked up on that. They use they them pronouns. Now,
Editing error at all. I can confirm that. That is absolutely intentional. Yep. There was a lot that Iridesia had to sort out, and part of it was their identity, not only as a fairy, but their gender identity as well. So yeah, I can confirm that Iridesia is the first non-binary fairy we've seen. Not the first non-binary character. We've had other ones in Neopia before. A good example of that is Umbra Pen. But it was really exciting. This is something we've been building for or building towards for a long time now, and trying to set up subtly in the earlier episodes as well.
and as someone who is non-binary myself, it is nice to see that representation there. It's because as long-standing fairies have always identified, at least openly, as being female. Now, was this a testing the waters, or is that potentially something that's going to become more commonplace as the Neopets narrative moves forward? Because a lot of people are feeling very seen, very like inclusive, like the Reddit and everything has been blowing up about this reveal.
We've really been trying, I'd say for the last few years, we've been really making an effort to make the site more inclusive as a whole. I think a lot of people have noticed we have a lot more different accessibility characters and all sorts of characters from different walks of life. And we've even made a real effort to change up the different customizable and wearables you have, because for a long time they were sort of the same style and they weren't representative of all different types of groups of people. So we've been really trying to make an effort to make sure that everyone is seen and felt like they're welcome on Neopia, because it's really what it is all about. It is a very diverse lands. You have all sorts of different entities and creatures coming together, and we really did love the idea of continuing to make Neopia a welcoming place. So I will say we have talked a lot about future stories, and I think the thread of the Gray Fairy itself is something we've talked about a lot, not only as um, Iridesia's transformation, who they've become now, but the other idea of like what other fairies have been out there that might have some connection with this loss of identity. I mean, we delved a little bit into it with the recent chapters, and talking about how Jakara still was unable to fully let go of their previous identity, and that's why they still have these feathers. And if you look around in Ethiopia, there are a few other fairies like Talia, the snow fairy, who might have had some interesting history and might have had to find their new identity as the snow fairy, but maybe they didn't fully let behind that past as well. So yeah, we've been thinking a lot about trying to tie in all sorts of different Neopian characters, and make sure that it's a welcoming place for everyone. And it was really important to us that it wasn't something that was heavy-handed or felt forced at all. We really wanted to gradually build up to this and make it feel natural. And I understand why a lot of people might want to confirm that it wasn't an editing error sort of thing, but
Hmm.
we also wanted to make sure it felt like it was a natural moment. And we do touch upon it a little bit more in future chapters, but it's definitely supposed to feel like something that should be natural and a progression of the character and development as well.
Hmm. So with their design in particular, it is fairly unique as far as their wings and everything compared to like the other fairies. What was the reasoning or the choices behind that design aesthetic, because it is so unique?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really wish I could pull in one of the artists to talk about this too, because it was a very collaborative effort. And one of our lead artists, actually, Clammy Hand, TNT Clammy Hand, he's fantastic and did a phenomenal job on this design. We worked really hard on it. The wings themselves were born from the idea of a sort of stained glass aesthetic that we felt really connected to Iridesia's new identity. The thought we had was this whole time in the past, Iridesia has been a light fairy, or they thought that they were a light fairy, and they were trying to fit into that mold, and you know, go through the same kind of steps that a normal light fairy would be, fit into that existing archetype, but they didn't quite fit. And we wanted to think about how we could tweak it a little bit and find a new specialized version of fairy for them. And as we had our discussions about their identity and who they should end up as and how like naturally they will get there, we did keep coming back to the idea of a type of rainbow fairy and the idea of like refracting light, and you yourself being either a mirror or some type of way to refract and to present this light in a different way, because it's something entirely new. It's not just another light fairy. This is an entirely new type of fairy, and we wanted to be unique and a little different. And I'm glad you picked up on that, because the wings, exactly, we didn't want to make it just like another insectoid wings. We wanted to have it a little bit more unique and make it look a little bit more like stained glass. And we actually did take a lot of inspiration from different creatures we were looking at. I know we did a little bit of research in different terms of wings, and we kept coming back to this moth-like aesthetic for Iridesia, but we didn't want to do just classic moth wings. We really wanted to connect it to that rainbow fairy aesthetic that we were reaching for. And I think one detail I really want to point out too that I'm really happy with is that the gray doesn't fully disappear, because that's not how the world works. There's no way that they won't fully be gray. And if you'll notice, there's this piece of their original rags that were turned into a gray sash around their waist, that kind of represents the fact that they will live with that gray for the rest of their life, but they are now, it's not all of them. Now it's just a piece of them, because there's so much more of Iridesia that they're trying to explore now. It's not that they're just put into this one box of being this, person who's dealing with this one struggle. They know that that's just a small piece of them, and it still makes up the whole.
Absolutely. And it definitely, I think, ties in very wonderfully to the plot line itself of, that whole, like, the void sucking away the color, them being gray themselves, and them coming out as, like, the antithesis of what that plot line has been up until now.
Yes,
So,
that's exactly what we were thinking. I'm so happy you picked up on that.
yeah, the moment that, like, their foot touched the puddle and then the colors started, it was a wonderfully beautiful transformation scene. Like, it did feel like you guys put a lot of, like, thought into those moments. So, like, really thank you on behalf of the community for that, and I'm so excited to see where the rest of their story goes.
Absolutely thrilled to hear that.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? As those were pretty much the biggest few questions, and I know you've got a lot to do, and there's a lot coming down the way.
I appreciate that. Maybe we could do another one when the plot is over, because there'll definitely be a few more details to talk about. I suppose I'll say the next few chapters, there's going to be quite a bit happening. I'm really excited for that final battle. I don't want to give away too much, but I
Mhm.
think it'll be really fun for everyone. And I will say one last thing I do want to tease is that when the dust is settled and the final chapter is over, there will be some more secrets lurking about. So I do want to make sure I say that now, just so some people can keep their eyes out and maybe discover them as soon as they can.
I mean, Neopians, if not anything, are excellent at picking up on the minute details and then questioning it into oblivion. So, Well, TNT Aesop, thank you again for joining us, and appreciate you taking the time to like talk with me and the fellow Neopians. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me back.